This is the Fox 5 News Block.
Breaking news, a judge has spoken and sentenced a Venezuelan man to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the February death of a Georgia nursing student, Laken Riley. And an NYPD officer shot in the line of duty has been released from home, and he's back heading home from the hospital, and he's involved in the shooting as the shooter is now dead. Good afternoon. Welcome to the News Block. I'm Kendall Green, and here's the stories we're working on. But we're going to get to those stories in a bit. But let's take a look outside. We're waiting for some much-needed rain. Let's toss things over to Audrey Puente, who's out there. What are things looking like, Audrey?
Well, we're dry right now, Kendall. As we just saw from that image, we have lots of clouds in place across the tri-state area. It's overcast in 59 in Central Park. We're at 56 over at LaGuardia, and a comfortable 60 degrees in Atlantic City. Now, we're dry on the radar, and again, we do have clouds in place, but the rain is still off towards our west. It's just edging its way into the screen here, heading over towards western Pennsylvania and western portions of New York. It'll all be coming in later on tonight, probably after about 10 or 11 o'clock, and we'll get a healthy amount of rainfall overnight. The upper level low is going to sit and spin over the region here, so we're going to be unsettled for the next couple of days. On the backside of the system, some colder air is going to rush in behind and change over some of that rain to snow north and west of the city. That's right. So rain will move in tonight. Again, the heaviest rainfall will be overnight tonight into very early on Thursday morning. Early morning commuters will have a slick ride going into the work on the early hours of Thursday, and then we'll have some snow mainly north and west of the city, and it will accumulate too in a couple of inches. It's also going to turn much windy and colder too as we go into the end of the week. The details coming up. Kendall?
All right, thanks, Audrey. The police officer shot after a suspect went on a violent robbery spree in Queens is back home from the hospital. Now, the officer's brothers and sisters in blue embraced Officer Wong after he left the hospital after being shot in the leg last night. Now, he's expected to make a full recovery. The guy who shot him was a career criminal, cops say, Gary Worthy. He entered two different stores last night in Queens, demanding money and started shooting. Officer Wong ordered him to stop, but Worthy then shot him in the leg. And that's when Officer Wong returned fire, killing Worthy.
He didn't know what he was going into. He didn't know he was going to confront a dangerous, evil individual who was arrested 17 times. And one of those arrests were for murder. So he didn't think twice about shooting a New York City police officer. But we're thankful for the skill of our police officer who was able to fire back and stop the threat.
Now, the suspect was a lifetime parolee for firearm possession. Mayor Eric Adams, he says that it's just another example of the criminal justice system failing everyday New Yorkers. And Mayor Adams has announced New York City Sanitation Commissioner Jessica Tisch will become the new NYPD commissioner. Now, she's a 12-year veteran of NYPD and will be the second woman ever to hold that role. The NYPD says 55-year-old man was slashed in the ear and cheek this morning on the Upper West Side. Now, police say it happened just before 10:30 on West 86th Street with an unknown object. The suspect took off from the scene, and the victim was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Now, no word yet on what led up to that incident. And breaking news, the Venezuelan man convicted of murdering Georgia nursing student Laken Riley has been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 26-year-old Jose Ibarra was found guilty on 10 counts, including murder in Riley's February death. Ibarra waived his right to a jury trial, so the judge in the case heard and decided the case alone. The case fueled the national debate over immigration during this year's presidential election. And the South Carolina woman who drowned her kids 30 years ago will stay behind bars. Susan Smith, who is now 53, asked to be released on parole today. But the board denied her request, and Smith is serving a life sentence for killing her two children in 1994 by rolling her car into a lake with her 3-year-old and a 14-month-old trapped inside. Now, Smith's ex-husband and a prosecutor asked that she remain in prison. Now, President-elect Donald Trump has chosen former acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker as his NATO ambassador. Trump's other recent cabinet nominees, including Linda McMahon, as Education Secretary. Fox's Rebecca Castor has more.
We're going to end education coming out of Washington, D.C. We're going to close it up. We're going to send it all back to the states.
That's part of Donald Trump's vision for the Department of Education. And now he's chosen the woman who's going to spearhead it. Linda McMahon, a major Republican donor and Trump's small business administrator from his first term.
Linda is a proven executive that has a ton of experience. She did a great job at SBA. She has a heart for kids and education.
On the campaign trail, Donald Trump laid out his 10-point plan to reshape American education, part of which includes restoring the rights of parents to control their child's education, stopping political indoctrination, and implementing universal school choice.
There's no question that the biggest civil rights issue of our era is choice in education. Trapping poor kids out of quality education should be, if it's not, a violation of their civil rights.
But Trump's ambitious goal of closing the Department of Education is unlikely to happen. The department was created by Congress, and only Congress can abolish it.
You're going to tell me if you think the Department of Education, our blind children, our deaf children, our children with all kinds of intellectual disabilities will literally be on the side of the road.
And that's a major role of the Education Department, to disperse funds for students in poverty and those with disabilities. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
Or President-elect Donald Trump's choice for Attorney General Matt Gaetz taking steps to secure his nomination. The former congressman met privately with Republican senators who have questions about the sexual misconduct allegations against him. This while the House Ethics Committee is expected to discuss their findings and whether to release the findings of that report. Food insecurity concerns are top of mind for Americans across the country amid some recent E. coli outbreaks. Fox 5 Jody Goldberg breaks down the best ways to make sure your food is safe.
It's every day. It's something else.
Following another E. coli outbreak that resulted in the recall of several brands of whole and baby organic carrots, concerns over food safety are growing nationwide. Consumer watchdog Teresa Murray is sounding the alarm.
The disturbing thing is that we're seeing more and more that have either contamination with E. coli, salmonella, or listeria. And they're scary because you don't know it until you get sick from it.
Murray says E. coli can come from contaminated water, animal waste, or unsanitary conditions during packaging. She's pushing for higher standards for food testing.
You don't have a recall until food actually gets sold. And if more of it was being caught before it ever got out to you and me in the grocery store and in restaurants, we wouldn't see the recalls.
According to the Centers for Disease Control, New York is among the states with the most illnesses. So far nationwide, close to 40 people have gotten sick and one person has died.
I would prefer that we have increased oversight over these industries that are clearly don't have our best interests at heart.
I just think it's something we have to worry about these days.
As for the carrots in your fridge or freezer, experts say it's not worth cooking them. Your best bet, bring them back to the store for a refund or play it safe and just throw them out.
I don't know how much those carrots cost, $3, $4, $5. It's not worth it.
The recent carrot recall comes just after an E. coli outbreak linked to onions on McDonald's Quarter Pounders. 10 deaths were also tied to listeria from boar's head meats over the summer. Murray's advocating for better consumer notification to prevent what she calls recall fatigue.
So what we really want is a better way for consumers to find out about the recalls that actually affect them and affect their family.
Public health officials warn the number of cases may spike because it could take up to 10 days for symptoms of E. coli to appear, leaving shoppers shopping with caution this holiday season. On Long Island, Jody Goldberg, Fox 5 News.
Well, the U.S. vetoed a UN resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in the war in Gaza today. The move was made by the U.S. because the resolution is not linked to an immediate release of the hostages still in captivity by Hamas. The UN Security Council voted 14-1 in favor, but it was not adopted because of the U.S. veto. The Security Council adopted its first resolution on the ceasefire plan back in June, and it was accepted by Israel and called on Hamas to accept. Now, the war has been going on for more than a year. Well, another big move from the U.S. in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. The Biden administration will allow Ukraine to use American-supplied anti-personnel landmines against Russian forces. Trey Yingst has the latest from Kyiv.
It is now day 1001 of the war in Ukraine, and there's no end in sight. And now the Ukrainians are taking the fight deeper into Russian territory, using American-supplied long-range missiles.
President, nice to see you.
Good to see you. Fox spoke to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as he traveled to the front lines. He acknowledged the possibility that American aid might dry up when President-elect Trump takes office, but also said he's optimistic that Trump will help end the war quickly.
It will be not simple, but I think, yes, he can, because he is much more stronger than Putin. He's stronger. United States is stronger.
And President Biden is ramping up the aid in his final months in office. On Wednesday, he announced another $275 million aid package, including, for the first time, anti-personnel landmines, a reflection of the Russian military's changing tactics.
They don't lead with their mechanized forces anymore. So that's what the Ukrainians are seeing right now. And they have a need for things that can help slow down that effort.
Meanwhile, the Russians keep pounding Ukraine from the air. And on Wednesday, the U.S. Embassy here in Kyiv closed down after receiving a warning of a potentially significant Russian attack. Regardless of the threat, the U.S. says it's determined to keep helping Ukraine.
Ukraine's future is a future that is rooted in a West, as an independent, democratic country, something that Vladimir Putin completely opposes.
Embassy officials are also telling American citizens here to be prepared in the coming days to shelter with little notice. In Kyiv, Trey Yingst, Fox 5 News.
Well, let's take a live look outside. We normally don't celebrate soggy days, but this is some much-needed relief. Let's bring in meteorologist Audrey Prante. I mean, this is some much-needed rain, Audrey.
Very welcomed, too. We have drought conditions across the tri-state area, in fact, the entire Northeast, and we do need this beneficial rainfall that's headed right in our direction. So we should stay dry until later on this evening. I think the rain will start to make its impact after about 10 or 11 p.m. tonight, and overnight we'll have steady to heavy rainfall at times moving in across the region. The rain will be shifting off to the northeast. However, will still be lingering during the early morning commute. So if you'll be out on the roads, be aware that you may have to give yourself some extra time to get to where you need to be. And the upper level low will keep things unsettled as we go through the afternoon on Thursday. And on the backside, we can see colder air coming in, and that's going to change the rain over to snow north and west. And we're going to have an accumulating snow, too, in parts of the Poconos, up towards the Hudson Valley, and even into portions of western New Jersey, too, where we could see maybe about a ½ inch in and around the Trenton area. So for the rainfall totals, we're going anywhere between 1 to 2 inches of rainfall before it's all said and done. And then as far as snowfall, we will have accumulating snow well north and west here. We could close in on some places, seeing a couple of inches, especially across northeast Pennsylvania. Temperatures will be cooling off over the weekend, too. It'll turn windy and cold with temperatures only in the low 50s to upper 40s. Kendall?
All right, thanks, Audrey. Well, Broadway's Tammy Faye announced its final performance will be in just a few weeks. The show, which features music by Elton John, just opened on November 14th at the Palace Theater. And when it's set to close on December 8th, Tammy Faye will have performed 24 previews and just 29 regular performances. Well, that's your news block for now. I'm Kendall Green. Thanks for joining us, and tune into the 5 o'clock news on Fox 5 right here on Fox Local for all the day's news as it develops. And we'll see you right back here tomorrow.